Hey everybody, welcome to Life and Leadership with David Gadberry. I'm excited today and so excited that you're a part of our leadership network. And man, we just want to talk about leadership. You know, we believe that leadership does not happen in a vacuum. We believe that life is messy, can be messy, and we want to talk about real life and real leadership. And today I'm very excited because I have a good friend of mine in the studio with me. It's going to be a great podcast, and we're going to talk about some very interesting things. I actually have two friends with me, Brandon Henry, who is the lead pastor at the House Church in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, and then one of our own team, Scotty Haynes. And we're just going to talk about big leadership in small places. Glad you could join us.
Welcome to Life and Leadership with David Gadberry. We're excited that you're joining our leadership community. There's a lot of information about leadership, but a lot of times it's too sterile for real life. Life is messy and leadership can be messy. Here we talk about real leadership in the context of real life. If you're a leader looking for tips, insight, and wisdom on leadership, you can follow David on social media. And for upcoming group coaching experiences and more, go to gadberry.org. David is the lead pastor of Summit Church in Canyon, Texas, and we would love to invite you to be a part. For more information, go to yoursummitchurch.com. This is the Life and Leadership Podcast.
Okay. Hey guys, well, I'm so glad you're here with me today, and obviously we want to talk about leadership issues, and I want to introduce you to everyone, and so Brandon has come to just hang out with us for a couple of days, and we're really enjoying our time together, and he's gleaning from us, and we're gleaning from him, and today what I wanted to do is just get you in this podcast and let you kind of share some of the things you're experiencing, because it's pretty miraculous what's going on in your life right now. And I believe it's God. Obviously, I believe God's hands on it, but there are also some leadership components here that we want to derive from your experiences to help us. And the reason I'm titling it Big Leadership in Small Places is because you're leading in a very small community. I think 6,000 in Pauls Valley proper. There's 6,000 something people. There's probably a little more in the county, but that's really what you're dealing with. And you guys your church is running about 10% of that. Which is amazing. I mean, just the influence of that in that community. I was just talking to someone yesterday, and I said, if you think about that, there's no one in Pauls Valley doesn't know someone who's in your church or isn't encountering someone who's in your church daily. Because when you have that many people in a community that size in your church, your church is probably the most predominant organization of any kind in the community. So I'm sure that comes with some really good things and possibly some challenging things. Absolutely. So I have a group of pastor friends that I like to talk to and share with that are most of them are in medium to small communities. People don't realize this because everybody, when they plant churches or when they want to, when they think about doing something big, they think about going to big cities because that's where all the people are. But if you look at it, most people in America, the large majority of people go to church in rural areas, not urban areas. Right. So there is a difference. There's a difference between leading any organization in a smaller setting than there is in a larger setting. And there are pros and cons to both. And I've heard people make excuses. Well, we can't reach anybody because there's just so many churches and we got so many people and they're all secularized. And then I've heard other people say, well, we can't grow because we're in a small place. And everybody's always got their excuses. The truth is it's different. It's different in big places, it's different in small places, but we all have been called to certain places, and we have to do things in certain ways in those areas that are different. So I just want to talk about, I think it's pretty powerful to have big vision in a small environment because you really have the power to have a lot of influence. And so I want to talk to you about that today. So first, let's just talk a little bit about, number one, before you were lead pastoring, you were youth pastoring. So you made the transition from youth pastoring to lead pastoring, and you planted a church.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that transition. You have to go into details about it, but because we want to get to the meat of what. But just tell us what in your mind was, you know what, I'm going to plant a church. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become a lead pastor and a church planter at the same time from youth ministry.
Yeah.
Share your heart.
Just crazy. I just thank Pastor David and Pastor Scotty for just allowing me to come and maybe just to sit in with your staff meeting yesterday, and maybe just to get to glean on. You guys got amazing staff, amazing team culture, and I'm just honored to be here. So thank you for allowing me to sit in. And you guys are definitely, Pastor Scotty's been a big influence in my life as well. So. But it was it didn't come like, I didn't get like a word from God when I got saved at 22 years old. I'm 40 now, that said, hey, one day you're going to pastor a church. Yeah. If anything, it's like, oh my God, I don't even know who I am, and much less who Jesus is. So it just started at just surrendering my life at 22 and just trying to figure out who Jesus was, and just, I still remember when I went to church, when I made it more than one Sunday, and then two, and then three, and then just got fired up for God. And then just somebody one day said, hey man, we need some help in the kids ministry. I hated kids. I didn't even like kids. Yeah. So I was just so on fire for God. I just went out there and started volunteering with kids, and too long I was leading children's ministry, and then served on our greeting team and welcome team. And then it got involved with family small group ministry, and then it got involved with the youth group, and it just, so all this just didn't happen just by itself. I think it was a cumulative of things that happened over a period of time. Right. And just the more I just grew with Christ, the more I just wanted to surrender my life to Him more than anything. And I graduated in college in 2005, and I became a teacher and a coach at Paul's Alley, which was really cool. I had the best job in the world. I was a PE teacher for pre-K through third grade. So I played dodgeball and hit kids in the head every day with dodgeballs. That's great.
What do you do for a living?
Yeah,
it was hit kids with that.
Yeah, it was really great. But at the same time as I was in the school, I knew that I wasn't there as a teacher. I was there as a disciple of Christ, and I was still just using that platform to try to speak life into kids and build up kids and let them know that they have a plan and purpose, and that they have value more than just their grades or who they are, but God loves them. And I really enjoyed being part of that. But in 2010, I had an opportunity to be a professional golfer. And I resigned from that, and I did that for 2.5 years. Obviously, I didn't make it because I'm here today.
Yeah, you're going to play golf with us in a little bit, and that's going to be fun to experience.
But when I did
you're going to see what it's like to play with really good people.
Yeah, oh yeah, I can't wait. And I had a good experience. My brother sponsored me, and it was great. And man, but I tried out for the Byron Nelson and just realized those guys were just on a different level than me. But there's just this draw I always wanted, because I was a youth pastor at that time. My current pastor at that time asked me if I would take over the youth ministry. And I was like, well, man, I'd do it anyway. I might as well get paid to do it. I'm just going to be honest with you. It was a part-time income that I was already doing it anyway, that I needed help provide. And I just fell in love with kids and the ministry, and I wanted to be with them more than be at a golf tournament or something. In 2012, I gave it up, and my pastor offered me a full-time position there, which there's no such thing as part-time in ministry anyway. We were already doing it, but really, so I was a youth pastor, and I loved it. I grew. I was involved with a lot of stuff there, and then so I was there for 7 years as a youth pastor, but I got saved in that church. Only church I've ever known my whole life. Yeah. I love those people, were my family. Yeah. Man, I was even single for 3 years, and I had every woman in that church praying for me a wife. Oh Lord, that Henry man, he need a woman. Bring him a woman. So it was really near and dear. In about 3 years, 3 years into it, Callie and I, my wife Callie, we felt that God wanted us to lead a church. We had no idea what that meant, what it looked like, because I truly humble when I say I'm truly the most unqualified person, I feel like, to be in the ministry or to lead a church, because I have no idea what that even looks like. I'm still even learning what that even means to be a pastor, So I just shared my heart with Callie, and man, we just started praying and fasting, and it just got stronger and stronger into it. So about a year left, we approached our pastor at the time, and we sought some outside counsel from a pastor who was really near and dear to me as well, and gave us good counsel to make sure we honor our pastor. We went back and told him and shared our heart. This is what we felt like, but we have no idea what that looks like. And so we thought that he was just going to bless us to leave to go do something, and then they asked if we would love to preach to them. And we was like, heck yeah, in my own county, I got my senior pastor over me that I could learn from and glean how to do finances, all that stuff. Oh my gosh, what better way than to be able to stay there? And then we shared our heart, just what God placed inside of me and Callie type of church, or what we felt like God wanted us to do. And they were cool with it up to that point. And then somewhere along the whole process of the transition, they just didn't feel comfortable with it, and told us that, and they were going to go a different direction. And we just had to make a decision whether or not that we were going to stay and be underneath that, or do what God has called us to do. Right. And at that time, it was such a huge yes. I want you guys to do this. We made the decision to leave and to just pursue. And we were hurt, like a lot of people hurt. We were hurt. We wanted, that was our family, and we didn't want to leave. That's the only place I ever knew. So we definitely jumped out of the boat, didn't even know what it looked like, and just started surrounding ourselves with pastors and going from church to church to see what does it even look like. Man, that was in August of 2016 when we left. And then for 6 months, we just prayed and healed. And then we knew by the end of that year that God did want us to plant a life-giving church in Pauls Valley, because there's 6,300 people and there's 49 churches.
When you said that yesterday, I literally about fell out of my chair. I mean, I cannot imagine. But, my dad pastored in that community in a denominational church years ago. And, it doesn't, when I really think about it, it doesn't surprise me. There's a very religious kind of thing in that area. And, which is like, but that's a lot of churches, 49 churches and there's only 6,000 people.
And we, we're like, oh my gosh, why does there need to be another church in Pauls Valley? And the more the question was put back on us, why not? Why doesn't there need to be another one? Because we just didn't want to plant a church to look like everybody else. The thing that God put us to do was different. We wanted to reach a different group of people that nobody was reaching. We know that the millennial generation from our surrounding community, nobody was reaching that generation. It was more of the older predominant generation that was being reached, but the next generation was totally being untouched, unreached. It was like, you don't need to do that stuff because it's not biblical, and it's legal. I call it legalism, to where, our world is just so different today. But I just felt like the church was just staying the way it did back in 1950. And we're still trying to do church the same way in today's world, and it's different. So when we felt led to really jump off there, like we were scared to death what it meant. We surrounded ourselves with 5 families when we left, and to pray and fast people who told us that we'd like to be part of it. It was after we left our church. We didn't take anybody with us, you know. And then we had a party in that December, and we sold the vision of the life-giving church. And man, we had 100 people show up, and I was like, man, my faith was big. We're going to get $50,000 and we're going to be ready to go. And yeah, we got like $300. Nobody, we didn't have a place to meet, and then within 2 weeks before we were going to go mobile and rent out the high school, which praise God, we're not doing that. The building came available where we're at. And I could go on and on about that. I hope I answer. So coming from the youth pastor to where we're at now, man, it was really just staying hooked up with God and growing. And I really tried to say no, to be honest with you, because I was scared to do funerals. I was scared of just not knowing. I was scared that I would hurt people. That something I would say would take somebody away from Jesus. Because I don't have a Bible degree, and I was like, man, I really don't want to steer anybody wrong. But man, the people I got surrounded me, we live in such an information age
Yeah.
that I don't have to go spend $100,000 to get a biblical degree with all the software and stuff out there. And so that helped me have a little bit more confidence to going
Right.
into that. But really when it just went out, I was like, God, I want to do this because one, I'm not talented enough. I'm not gifted enough. So if this thing happens, you're going to have to get all the credit for it.
Yeah.
And that's really just kind of how I've been since we started. And really, when we did a soft launch, we launched with 35 people, and I was fine. You know, if that's what it been in, it's never been about a number with me. It's just been about, God, I just want to love people. That's all I know what to do.
Right.
And then we did a hard launch in April 29th of 2017 with 250 people, and it just went up and up.
Yeah.
Since then.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. I love how organic your story is in the sense of just trying to follow God.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's this prescribed path that a lot of people get on, and not just in ministry, but many occupations, and it has to be just exactly like this. But, you know, I think it's just proof of that God will shake up your apple cart and change your direction and spin you around, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll just do whatever you say. And that's not to say that we're saying that you don't need to grow or develop or learn or any of that. We definitely do that, and I can tell just by the interactions we've had that you are always doing that. So I want to ask, just in you know, where did you grow up? Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Ardmore, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Was born there, raised there. My mother and father split up when I was in the third grade, and then they got back together. My dad moved to Pauls Valley. When they got back together, we ended up moving to Pauls Valley in third grade, and then I stayed in Pauls Valley from third grade, graduated there.
So you're a homeboy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love that community. You know, I was listening to, you know, where do you feel called to pastor, where to plant a church? And one pastor said it was Chris Hodges. He said he was driving down the road and he just felt, I love these people. I just feel called to that. And that's really my heart. I just love that community.
Right.
I grew up there. I know everybody.
Yeah.
And that was the place where I felt God wanted me to just give my life to.
We were neighbors.
That's right.
Yeah, you were.
What year did you graduate?
99.
99. So 91 I graduated. So when you were third grade, I'd have been a senior. 15 minutes just west.
Absolutely.
15 minutes west. I grew up in Maysville, so just connected to Paulsville. I'm sure at some point our paths crossed, and I said, hey, little guy, you're going to start a church one day. I feel like I'm basically responsible for the success that you had. No, I'm just joking. But that's so crazy. So
you know, you said something very important there. You know, number one, being a homeboy and building something where you live is harder than it looks. You know, you have the whole concept that, you know, Jesus talked about a prophet is without honor except in his own country, and you know, that is a real thing. That's a real thing. So in my mind, you have really you've already won in the sense that you're accepted there. You've gotten over that. That's just Brandon. He's no big deal. And really, you never try to be a big deal. That's what I love about you is you're not trying to be a big deal. You're not trying to act like you're something you're not. And I think you cannot fake your home. People, you can't. Your hometown knows you.
Yeah, that's good.
You ain't faking nobody out. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
But you said something so important, and that is, I love this place. I see a lot of guys in ministry that they want to grow a ministry, but they don't love where they're at. Yeah. Why do you love it? And how important do you think it is that you've got to you have to love? When I first came here, I'm going to be honest, I'd never been in West Texas. Like I may have driven through West Texas, but I'd never really been here. It's not an easy place to live if you've never lived here, just simply because the terrain is different, the attitudes are different, the weather can be challenging at different times. It's far different from the life that I grew up in. And so the first 2 or 3 years here, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But there was a shift in me. And God just I came from the city. I came from Oklahoma City. I loved Oklahoma City. I'm a city person. At least I thought I was. And and I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about almost embarrassed. I'm just going to be honest. And God just rebuked me. And here's the way he said it to me when I was in prayer. How dare you not be proud of the pasture I provided for you? You act like you're the sheep, I'm the shepherd, and you act like you know where the best pasture is. And he said, you got to be proud of your pasture. And it changed me. And now I'm telling you, I couldn't love this place more. God just shifted my heart. I couldn't love this place more. The people are unbelievable. These are special people that live here. And I love Amarillo. I love the conditions. I love everything about it. I love that you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. I mean, it's just, you can see the horizon. The sunsets and the sunrises are so beautiful. Used to, when people would say that to me, I'd say, well, that's what you got to say because there's nothing else happening, I mean, but there had to come to a time, I wouldn't have stayed here. Yeah. If I hadn't come to a time where I loved this place. And it is home. Like I used to refer to home. When I would say home, it would still be the city, but this is home. And it has been for a long time now. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not saying that by faith. This is it. This is where I want to be. Yeah. So how important is that to you? And how important has it been in your journey there?
Man, I think it has everything to do with one, planting the church there. Yeah. And then working through all the heartache that comes with it, because I think sometimes when you see a new church plant, people look on from the outside, oh my God, it's just all uphill. Yeah. They don't see there all the rocks and the roads and the bumps and things that happen. And it's the love, I think, of people. And it's the love of God, but it's through God. He gives you the ability to love people that keeps you going through that. I think it really helped me being in that community for such a long time because I was active in that community as a teacher and a coach. My wife and I, we were very involved in community organizations and things. So I've already had a lot of relationships built, even with people that we didn't currently go to the same church, right? So I already had a good relationship in that community, in that town, and I prayed. I was like, God, I would love for this to be the place. That's why I think it hurt so much whenever we left our church. It was like, wow, there goes my dream. Because what I love about it is the small town feel. Yeah, I'm really not a big city person. I really, I respect so many of the big pastors that have pastor 50, 60,000 people, and they might have 5,000 people they speak to, but the ones I kind of see that way, they're really kind of untouchable. It's not that they mean to be untouchable, but man, if I had that many people trying to grab me and touch me, I can understand that. Yeah. But for me, like I want to know people. Yeah. Like I feel like I'm more of a pastor than a preacher, I guess, a speaker to where I really want to be involved in people's lives and know their names and their kids' names and marry them and be there for them and stuff.
So time out for just a second. This is an interesting statistic. How many weddings have you done?
Man, you won't believe me, but coming up next month will be my 100th wedding since 2012.
Since 2012.
Yeah, no, that's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, that's a ministry in and of itself.
Yeah, many of the ones kids weddings that I was their PE teacher in the third grade, and they remembered me. I was their youth pastor. There for 10 years, I was part of kids from the time they were kindergarten all the way up through them graduating. And man, I just developed a relationship with them, and especially
you've said this 3 or 4 times. I don't even know if you realize you've said it, but you have, and even city churches and big organizations. This is key, and that is relationship. Relationship, because relationship is leadership, because leadership is influence, and you can't have influence without relating to people. So, I mean, laying that groundwork of already being in the community, already having many relationships and being connected. I mean, if you were going to go plant a church in a community that you'd never been in, the first thing you would do is start going engaging in some of those organizations, meeting the leaders of the community, being around them. That's the first thing you do. That was already set in stone for you because you were already involved in the community. That's a powerful thought, just in terms of methodology when it comes to planting a church or even developing and pastoring a church. You know, we have a philosophy here at Summit, and really it's more of a philosophy between my wife and I. And that is, we're not just pastoring Summit Church, we're pastoring the community of Canyon. Now, we know there are other pastors in town, and I'm very, very good friends with many of them. We are, like, some of my best friends are pastors of different churches here. And we respect them, and we're not trying to pastor their people, all that. Yeah. You know, I don't necessarily see people in a church as my people or your people. They're God's people.
Amen.
And whatever God wants to do with them, that's fine. But there's a lot of people in the community, as in all communities, that aren't in church anywhere. And we've just taken this position of, we're going to pastor this whole place. We're going to build relationships. We're going to love people. We're going to do things in the community, which we have done. And that sounds like what you're doing. When I first got in ministry as a youth pastor, my pastor was like that. Like he grew up in the place that he was in Okmulgee, Oklahoma, and had a great church. And he was a natural born leader, but he literally would bury everyone. Like people who went to other churches and had pastors. Yeah. If they died, it was their request that Willis would do their funeral. Mm-hmm. And he was really good in those moments of funerals and weddings and things like that. But it was relationship that opened that door for ministry in his life. He had a really good sized church, but it was just interesting that he pastored that whole community, really. Yeah. Is that what you're doing? Or do you think that's key to big leadership in small places?
Yeah, I try to do that. I feel like more God has called me to really focus on the ones that he brings to the house church. Yeah. Just because it's so overwhelming to me to think outside of that some. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And because there's so many different pastors, it's been tough. Yeah. You know, when somebody leaves somebody else's church to come to your church, obviously could be some animosity there or insecurity or things, or you hear stuff like, you're trying to steal my people, and even be so vulnerable to tell you, one pastor even said that I should just leave because I was part of another church and it's not fair that I'm using my influence and stuff to do that. And my wife and I thought about it, you know, just because that was never been our intent to steal anybody. So for the longest time, I don't know of pastors that have been really good friends. In Paul's Valley, I'm sure they are. We have a minister alliance thing that there's a lot of newer pastors that I'm trying, but I have trust issues. If I can just be so totally transparent with people's motives and stuff like that, because stuff that I heard them say about us in the community when they don't even know me or know the heart of our church or anything. And so when I try to do events or pastor our community by being an investment in them, or being an investment doing events, serve days and stuff in our community, car clinics, things like that. But as far as locking arms with other pastors and doing stuff, I don't do a lot of that. But we're like a lot of people. I hope I'm answering right. I never turn anybody away. Right. We will help. We'll have people call us and need help pay an electric bill or something, and where do you go to church, you know, and have you went to your pastor? And if they say, they don't have any money, we'll call that pastor and say, hey man, we have your so-and-so here. We would love to send you a check. Yeah. Just so it's, and you to pay their bill. So you don't think it's coming from, we don't want to make their person to think that we're, oh my God, I need to come over here. They take care of their people just because God has blessed us financially, which I have no idea how it happens, because my gosh, I thought, dude, if we could just make $1,200 a month and we could pay rent. Yes. Yeah. You know, when we got started, and I have no idea how it's really happened. And, but integrity and transparency is really big and key with me in that. So, well,
that's got to build relationships too with other pastors.
I want to bless our community though, Pastor David. I do. I just have a hard time doing it. I guess unity-wise, with other pastors, because I feel like if I have to ask you permission to do something, or you want me to cancel doing something so I can go do something with you, I just don't feel like that's being who God has called me to be. Yeah. I'm having to go through other hoops and just go do it.
Yeah. You know, this is the first community I've ever been in where I've been able to do that. Yeah. And the only reason we can do it is because of relationship. That's it. Yeah. And we had a plan. So we kind of led it, and we already had the plan in place, and we invited them to be a part. And so out of a big community event that we do, we were able to create and craft relationships and do that. But that what you're describing, especially in small towns, but even in large communities, it is ridiculously hard to get people together to help communities, which is what God wants, because that people can look at the church and say, hey, you guys can really work together. Yeah. Now, the problem that it brings is, if you have somebody who's more in the world's eyes successful than others, then there can be an insecurity there. But there's something that happened. My wife was sitting in a meeting with Lisa Bevere one time. There was a lot of pastors' wives in there, and she was just listening. And Lisa's an evangelist. She's never been a pastor, and so she's listening to all this conversation that was going on. And a lot of people she could just hear a lot of things that were, our people went over to this church and they stayed, and then a lot of these, and she just kept hearing our people, our people, our people. And she finally spoke up and she said, hey, I just want to draw y'all's attention to something. And she said, you keep saying our people. These aren't your people. They're God's people. Mm-hmm. And if God moves them, you just need to let them go, and I think that there's so much insecurity in us. And, we were just talking earlier how people say, well, it's just ministry and it's leadership and don't take it personally. But it is personal.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
you love people, and you're trying to build something. And when you love somebody and you're trying to build, and then they leave. I remember the first church plant I did, good friend of mine. He was biggest giver in the church. He was one of our lead team. And he got a call to go translate the Bible, and he still does this. And he went to Cameroon, Africa, and stayed there for like 15, 20 years, and he translated the scriptures.
Wow.
But let me tell you what my response was when he told me he felt like God was calling him that. I said, oh man, that's awesome. And then I went home and I was like, God, what are you doing sending him to Africa? He's my best. It hurts. It hurts. Man. But we have to get to the place where we don't possess people. We don't own them.
That's right.
They're not ours. And if God moves them, and if he doesn't move them, and they're just moving because they're restless or whatever, they don't agree with something or they don't like something, then you pray for them, you bless them, and you be gracious to them, because when they find their way back, they need to weigh in. And if you get possessive and insecure and act weird and call out another pastor, come on, man. I had a friend come to me the other day and say, hey man, we had some of your people that showed up at our church. And I just want you to know, I know that they're volunteers. And he said, I just want you to know, man, we're not doing that. I said, you don't ever, because we're friends. I said, you don't ever have to do that. Right. If God's moving them there, then I'm going to bless it. If he's not and they're making a mistake, then I'll pray for them and God will figure it out. Mm-hmm. But I'm just not, maybe it's because I'm a little older now, but I'm just not playing that game because it's just a waste of energy and a waste of time. But I understand what you're saying, because when you're on the side of it where you're being successful, it makes other people, we've had a little bit of that in our own life, people getting a little frustrated with us and, because they were concerned that we had too much influence or whatever. But you know what? I'm not going to slow down. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing what God called me to do. So that's interesting, though. That's an interesting place to be. So what would you suggest to people who may be in your same boat in a small community, struggling with wanting to be an influence in the community, but also not wanting to bulldoze people or whatever, or be called someone who would be bulldozing people?
Yeah. Man, I think just the greatest thing you can do is try to understand that those other pastors in your community are just like you. Yeah. They are trying to do their best they can to honor God and the pastor, and they want to impact people the same way. So there's nothing wrong with being cordial with them. And when they get together and talk with them and let them know, if I can do anything for you, that's okay. But I also don't think you necessarily have to quit doing what you're doing.
Right. Exactly.
To go help somebody else to do, because I just think God has called us when we each pastor and do what our own calling, what God has called us to do, I really think that's when the body of Christ is the most effective.
Right.
So, but when there is an opportunity to do something together with them, man, if we can, we will.
Yeah.
You know, like the Minister Alliance, I don't pay dues to them, but when COVID happened, which was really cool, they reached out and said, hey, we would love to do a community prayer night. Your church is set up for online and everything, and none of us ours. Can we meet at your church? And we would love for you to be part of it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you guys can come and use our church, but I don't have to be part of that prayer. It's like, no, we want you to be part of it.
Yeah.
And even the president of the Minister Alliance, who pastors another church, came and reached out and just started asking what my heart was. And I shared and told him my pain and why I'm not so much. And that earned so much credibility to me.
Yeah.
That they cared enough to reach out. It started the healing process is what I'm saying. Like if you're like me, you've been hurt.
Yeah.
You have some trust issues
Yeah.
and you need to heal.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is to go past that fear of,
Yeah.
you know, no, not everybody's against you, but Brandon,
Right.
don't have this victim mentality. And
Yeah.
if you can help somebody else,
Yeah.
if you can help their church, if you can help their cause, it's all for the kingdom of God.
Right.
And it's taken me a while to get here, Pastor David, to be honest with you, to really care about even doing anything with
Right.
anybody else. I was just going to bulldoze ahead, and God's really softened my heart.
Yeah.
So,
But you know, and the truth is, you can't stop building the kingdom because someone else feels offended by it or feels like they're not as successful as you or they're being insecure.
Yeah.
You can't go, all right, we're going to stop so
You're
you
not be yourself.
so you won't feel bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's-
But at the same time, if you can, like you're saying, if you can, and I can tell you, man, that's a really great step. Like what you just said about sending a check to that church and saying, you pay their bills, we'll fund it. You don't have to tell them.
Oh, that's
just
great.
What an integrity move. And I'm sure that made an impact. And you know, people, they'll tell people, I guarantee if I was that pastor and you did that with me and someone said something negative about your church and all that, Brandon, he's just trying to steal, he would go, oh no, you don't know him.
That's right.
That's what I would do. That's my first thing to say. No, you don't know him. Let me tell you what he did for us. And, you know, you're not doing things out of that desire, but I'm just saying it takes time, like you said. And I think you cannot be afraid of being successful or building the kingdom or doing what God's called you to do because it may upset someone else's apple cart. You know, that they've got to deal with that. But it also doesn't mean that you can't reach across and try to help.
I'll tell you another thing we've done. Our heart has always been we use it as a part of a discipleship tool for our church, but also as outreach in the community. Something called Serve Day that Church of the Highlands or Elevation does, like a love week. Oh my Lord, I can't imagine doing a whole week of this stuff. But so we just wanted to adapt that in our church. So the first 2 years we did it just by ourselves, our church, and it became a big deal. Well, the Chamber of Commerce, we had that a couple years ago. A big old storm came and trees were knocked down. We were out of electricity. Well, they wanted to do a cleanup day, and they invited the Minister Alliance and all the churches to get together. Well, so I decided instead of us doing it on our own, well, let's just join in with them to be part of, and let's make a bigger impact in our community, right?
Right.
Which was really cool. We had about 150 people show up.
Awesome.
And it was so cool because we got an award for helping keep in Oklahoma beautiful for a small town community. And our church was part of to help make that happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm glad because we never said it's just our Serve Day. It's like, man, we're part of help keep Paul's out the community. So there's little things that you can do.
Serving breaks down barriers.
Absolutely.
It breaks down barriers. Serving, when you're willing to go, you know, anytime you do anything together with anybody, it creates a bond between you that you can't help it. It just does. And so I love that, man.
And then the last thing, we did something called Love PV that we wanted to help buy school supplies for all the kids in Pauls Valley because being in the community, we're a very, very underprivileged community. 70% of kids are on reduced or free lunches.
Yeah.
So we knew that was a need, and it's something that our church could have done by ourselves. But man, we wanted to get a whole community involved.
Yeah.
Man, we talked to every business, every church, and invited them. I mean, it's well over $50,000.
Yeah.
And our community came together, and the last 3 years, we have bought school supplies for every kid.
Yeah.
All grades from Pauls Valley and Whitebead.
Yeah.
And it's our community. So even though it was birthed out of our heart, we can still make it a community thing to help bridge the gap.
Yeah, we do something very similar to that called I Heart Canyon here, and that's really that's the backbone of, you know, we tried to stop doing that like now, and the city came to us and said, please don't stop doing that. And not just because it provided school supplies, but because it brought people together. And so, you know, I really, you guys are making an impact. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, what would you say, and I'm sure you could come at this from many different perspectives, you know, from moving from youth pastoring to lead pastoring or church planting or just, you know, small community environments, whatever. But what would you say has probably been, as a leader, has been the single most challenging thing to you on your journey in leading there?
Man, it's really been handling conflict the right way.
Yeah.
To where if somebody would come at me, if they had a problem and if they didn't use the proper tone, or I felt like they were attacking me, I would lose it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you'd see me, my posture would change, my voice would change, my tone would change, and I would become very standoffish.
Yeah.
And at that point, I no longer cared.
Yeah.
Their concern. Now I'm here to win.
Yeah.
I'm here to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And early on in my pastoral, you know, it hurt a relationship, a friend relationship that I had a long time, and it was with a lady, and she was my administrative assistant, and she said some really mean things to me that I thought way stepped her ground, and I yelled, and I was like, man, and that not only did it ruin our relationship. They stayed in our church, but it's still not the same. Yeah. But man, God just, even though I felt justified to say, you don't talk to a man that way, man, when I started just spending time with God, he just really convicted me and said, Brandon, you got a problem. Yeah. And it was the insecurity, one of me being a young pastor, thinking people would just come in and bully me and just, you know, and I'll never, because I had two bosses before that did that. Yeah. And I made the vow, I'll never let anybody talk to me that way again. Yeah. So on my journey, I feel like now it's really just been, regardless of what people say, how they treat me, to not let it affect me as a Christian, but as a pastor, of really trying to listen more than talk, or listen to what people are trying to, because I think a lot of times I misunderstand people when they communicate. Yeah. It's not because I'm mean, I'm just not listening. Yeah. You know, I'm trying to think back, well, how am I going to respond? Yeah. So it's really been learning how to handle conflict the right way. Yeah. To where I tell you guys, my heart in my ministry, I don't even care to be the most successful as how big it is or how much money we have or how many buildings. But if I can escape ministry without injuring people, I'll consider that a success. Yeah. Because coming from a youth pastor to a senior pastor, I studied so many churches, so many models, and so many people have been hurt by a pastor, by the church, which it's unfair because people sometimes put an unfair expectation on us that we're God. And I'm just supposed to I'm supposed to be a punching bag, and you just come at me all the time. And we have feelings, we have emotions and stuff like that. So I've really been learning how to control my emotions, how to listen, and man, just don't take everything that I've really. This is what I'm not going to pick up that offense. Yeah. I'm sorry you're mad. I'm sorry you have a problem. That's your problem. Now, if I can change it, like if there's something bad that I'm really not doing right, I need to fix that. You know, as a pastor, a genuine concern. Right. But what I'm learning is that I can't please everybody. No. There's some people like, oh my God, that was the most amazing sermon in the world. And the next person was, can't believe you said that. Yeah. Can't believe you did that. Yeah. You know, so trying to just stay true to who God created me to be, to love people without injuring them. Yeah. That's really my heart. Yeah. And because I've loved people, because I've realized the position that God has put me in, I've done nothing to be a senior pastor, to deserve the platform that I've been given. Man, there's a big responsibility that's come with that. And that's to continue to grow, is to continue to learn. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly growing. I try to stay humble because I never want to arrive. I never want to feel like, man, I got this thing figured out, you know, or because a lot of pastors have. I have a lot of pastors, they start out and they become the lid. Just satisfied. They just satisfied. And well, now I'm no longer letting anybody do ministry. Yeah. And then the church dies or whatever. Yeah. And So that's really been the biggest deal, is learning how to overcome conflict. And then the other thing has been is learning how to preach a different sermon every Sunday. I'm all out of youth material. I've done all my youth sermons, and now I'm like, so I'm stealing Scotty's from High Mark, and you're still using yours, and I'm stealing all kinds of sermons from people. So
it's funny. That is one of the challenging things about being a senior pastor. One of the most challenging that people don't think about, especially people who aspire to preach. Yeah. They don't realize there's a difference between throwing a message together every now and again to literally creating content every single week that you can be convicted about, that you can have passionate about, that you can take to your, and minister to people, like literally take it and minister. And it's not easy. Learned something really strong from a leader or mentor, a distant mentor in my life, Paul Scanlon, who I asked him how often he speaks. When he was pastoring, he's now got a coaching company, and he's turned his ministry over to his kids. But he would speak 3 times, and then he would have someone else speak twice, and then he'd come. And he said he did it for 2 reasons. Number one, to take pressure off of him, but also he said your voice becomes white noise to your people after a while.
Absolutely.
Because you're hearing that one voice, and it just is too much. And so then it also makes you a lot fresher to people. When you come back, they're ready for you to be back. And so I've been kind of practicing that. I don't do it to that degree. I'm more like 3 and 1, or 4 and 1, that kind of a thing. But it does help. So that is a challenge. That is a challenge. And I think some ways to solve that is to build a preaching team. I know that a lot of guys are aspiring towards, and there's guys on the level, especially in some of the small churches, that are aspiring towards video venues and things like that. And about the time they get there, that's going to be out of the trend. I heard Greg Surratt say that there is a time limit on that, and at some point people are going to want to hear from someone live. And so we need to be raising up preachers. Anyway, that's not the topic of today's discussion, but I think we need to be raising up preachers, and we need to, and one way, even if they're not preaching, you can develop a team that helps you create content. And they're preparing to preach, so anyway. So let me ask you if there's any challenges that you face that pertain specifically to small town environment. What would you say that those challenges have been, and what maybe have you done about it?
Man, probably the hardest thing is when somebody, like you said, somebody does feel led to leave your church, and then they go somewhere else, and then you hear all the talk. Yeah. It's really hard to not, because you want justice, or you want to put the record out there and make it, no, this is what really happened.
Right. And in small communities, that matters.
Absolutely.
A lot more than big communities.
It's really... Man, it just is. There's so much more gossip. There's so much more drama. There's so little. Yeah. Everybody knows everybody's business. Right. Something happens the next day. It's condensed. Yeah. And a lot of people, they won't even go do their research or to find out. Right. They hear one thing and they already make a judgment about it. Yeah. So we have had some people that have left that it's been hard, because you invest your life into these people, and then they don't like one thing for whatever reason. You look up and they're gone. And you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? And then you hear from another pastor, somebody, well, this is what they said. It's like, I never knew that. Right. If they would have gave me a chance to ask for forgiveness or to fix it, I would have done that, And then the other thing I would just say it is connecting with other pastors in that community has been really challenging for me. Yeah. Some people don't have a big problem with it, but it's really been hard for me.
It's not that most people have a problem with it. You know why I've never been a part of pastors' networks anywhere I've gone is because, and this is every pastor that's listening to this, please hear what I'm saying. It's not out of a wrong heart or bad heart, but I'm a guy who finds a lot of purpose in what I do. And if it doesn't matter if I'm pastoring or leading our coaching company or whatever, I find purpose in it and meaning in it. And I really don't have time for nonsense. And what I mean by that is most pastors' networks I've ever gone to devolve into a complaining session about ministry. And it always results in me wanting to go, well, if you hate it so much, get out. Stop doing
absolutely.
it. Go do something else. And so then ultimately I end up just not being a part because of that. Fortunately here, our network here hasn't really met a lot. And but we have friendships, and and our friendships are developed around doing things together, that kind of deal. But most people, most places have the same issue you do. There's backbiting, there's complaining, there's griping, there's and pastors need a place to do that. Absolutely. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying it's never right for a pastor to go, I am very frustrated about ministry right now, and I've got a lot of problems. Well, go to a confidant, go to a counselor, go to someone who can actually bring solutions, but don't turn in your network into that. That's it. So that's why I don't. And then you have the trust issue. You have the insecure people, and you have the people who are, very surface oriented or whatever. So it's almost like a waste of time. So I wouldn't say that some people are that way. I'd say most people don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing, and I'm thankful for Pastor Scotty to have overseers that I'm able to call and vent. Man, they've helped me through so much of the stuff. They helped me from making bad decisions. But another thing I've noticed, and I just feel like God wanted me to share this, is I've realized in a small town community, people are used to, it's the senior pastor's job to do everything.
Right. Yes.
And I want him there in my hospital, all this stuff. And we've really tried to create that culture since we started that, man, it's no longer about a pastor. I have a role, but we're all pastors in the ministry through family groups and stuff like that. And creating that I don't always have to be the one to preach. I said the apostles, meaning more than one. So and God's brought a lot of other pastors to our church. And man, I've been letting them speak, and help through our family group ministry, do ministry. And so that's really been another hardest thing. And I think we're better now than what it was. But some people, that's why they've been offended. Is because I wasn't able to be at all their stuff.
Well, and I think it even goes beyond that. I think a lot of, and I really didn't notice this in the city as much, but there's a lot of feeling in a smaller community of, let's go watch that pastor burn. They see themselves as just coming to church to sing a little, hear a good word, and the pastor's going to do the ministry, and that's it. And we've similarly, that's what we've done. We've created a culture that everyone is a part of ministry, and we have to. That's a continual battle and a continual struggle. So I agree with that.
And I would just say sorry, and then I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I would say to any pastor that feels that way, the one thing I realized that it's not my job to meet everyone's need. But it is my job to make sure that everyone's need is met.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what's really helped me to release. Yeah. I need help. I need pastors and people that God has called to be able to do that. And
because what's not crossing people's minds, and even what's not crossing a lot of leaders' mind, is our ministry level is limited to, if I say I'm the only one can do anything, then we can only do what I can do.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can't go any further than that. So then the last thing is, as it pertains to small, I think we may have already covered this, but you probably have something that would go a little deeper. And this is the last question I have, is in the small environment, the small community environment, what's the best thing you've done? Like, what would you say is the most significant thing that has helped your church grow? And not just grow numerically, but grow spiritually and grow as a successful ministry moving forward. What do you think those one or two things are that you think this has really been a difference maker?
I really believe one, it's been the growth track.
Okay.
And then the second thing is releasing people. So our deal is believe, belong, become, be the church. We first exist for people to believe that Jesus, and then we want them to belong to a church. We tell people it doesn't have to be our church. There's 49 other churches you can go to, but God wants you. But we also believe that God has a plan and purpose for every one of us, right? The God-given talent. So we want to help people to discover that. I think John Maxwell, I could be quoting this wrong, you could tell me, but he said like 2% of people are natural born leaders, 98% of people are learned leaders.
Yes.
So I think that although I think the majority of us are learned leaders, to be honest with you, that we're taught our gifting, we're taught our talent and our personalities and our gifting. And so when we just share people, listen, that God has more of a plan for you than to get saved and come to church and that's it.
Yeah.
That God has a plan for you to help build his church, to get involved. We want to help you discover your personality. And then what is your spiritual gift? What is the gift that God gave you to help build the church? But then we want to go a step further. We want to give you a platform. We want to empower you to use that gift to make a difference.
Right.
And we got it from the Grow Leader Network and just that whole system. I just need, if I could find a system that I believed in and implemented it, man, the system would run itself. And the Holy Spirit. And I think truly people have just really got in that growth track.
Yeah.
People have said, I got a spiritual gift. We had people that know they have spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that I don't have to have a Bible degree to do ministry, or Sister Betty doesn't have to die before I can
step in?
And I was like, absolutely not. Like there's a place for you to serve. Yeah. One thing Chris Hodges says, I think, is that everybody's a 10 in some area. So we just need to find what you're the 10 and then get them plugged into that area. And that's what I just think people have locked on. They discover their gifts and they truly believe, Pastor David, that, man, I am God's plan to reach humanity. I'm part of what I'm doing here, parking cars, is helping people get saved at the end.
Awesome. Right. And it is helping.
We'll have over 100 people give up on Saturday to come and serve in their community because they believe, man, I'm really making a difference.
Yeah.
And I think it's people, that's what people want. People just want to know that somebody believes in me.
Yeah.
And believes past my junk and my struggles that I can still be messed up and still serve God. And man, I've just seen so many people serving God out of our church, and I'm just like, it makes my heart smile when I see people do ministry, or people get up and speak for the first time and share their story, like we just did my testimony series, and people get up and talk about their struggles and how God changed their life, and other people get saved. And I just think it's so beautiful to watch people discover their gift and then be given an opportunity to use that to make a difference. Just like Summit, and I hear you and your team talk about it. Yeah, just gets me fired up, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you want to, one of the things for my company and for just my kind of like my life, I remember doing this assessment when I was 27, and it was this whole process that you started with all of these things about your life, and you narrowed it down to what your one phrase would be. And what I believe that God's called me to do in life is to help people discover, develop, and deploy their potential.
That's it.
And I believe that's what every pastor is called to do. And I know we take a spiritual look at that, but God created people and he put certain things on the inside of them. There's nothing that's kind of like my burn in life. Cause if I watch a movie that has that process, like someone's down and out and then they develop that potential and they have the victory. I don't care what it is. It could be a commercial that says that, and you'll look over at me and tear will be running out that's right, man. That's right. And I really believe that that's what we're called to do. It's more than just, I think that's how the kingdom is built. Absolutely. It's like we look into people's lives and say, man, God created you with so much and you can live it out.
Absolutely.
And here's how you live it out.
Come on, man.
Here's how you do it.
Absolutely.
And now go for it. And that's the fun and excitement of being a leader and of being a pastor. And people in small communities are the same as people in large communities in that essence. Amen. And I'll just tell you, I know that we're talking, big leadership in small places. And I know we're talking a lot about, what do you do in a small community to achieve? But here's what I've found to be true more than false. Okay. I've traveled the world, and you hear people talking about all the time, all the differences in humanity, all the differences in personality, all the differences in ethnicity, all the difference in socioeconomics. That's all we hear about is the differences. But you know what has shocked me when I've gone to Africa and to Asia and to Europe and here in America and all these different places? You know what shocked me more than anything? How similar people are. How most people want the same things for their family. Most people are trying to do the same thing everybody else is. Most people value life, value success, value significance. They want to be more than what others think they could be or what they've thought themselves. That's what most people are like. And I think what God has done, he's created people and he wants to redeem all that he's put in them and then use it for his glory and use it for his kingdom so that others would come and find him.
Absolutely. Oh,
that's what we get to
that's
do.
So good. Come on,
that's
man.
what we get to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I get how pastors get discouraged. Don't misunderstand me, because I've been there. And I get how you get offended and you get your heart hurt. And it's so funny what people don't realize. People don't realize that pastors do get hurt. Like, that's just another person in the church. It's just a person. But when someone leaves the church for whatever reason, it stings.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're going to chase after them. I never chase anybody.
That's right.
They got to make their own decisions. I don't want to be controlling anybody's life. But I just want to say, whether it's big city, whether it's small community, whether it's in between, people are people. They have potential. Jesus wants to bless their life, and he wants to use their life to make a difference.
That's it.
So that he can get as many people into the kingdom, so that when all things are wrapped up, souls will have been changed, lives will have been saved. And that's what we get to do.
I've even seen people that have struggled with addictions.
Yes.
When they're given the platform, it's helped them get over that addiction because they see that, man, these people looking at me,
the accountability of it. Yeah.
Even though none of us are perfect, we all want to pursue holiness. There's nothing more exciting what you're saying than somebody discovers their purpose and then use it. They're so excited. You don't have to beg people to come to church. They're excited to come to church when you have a life-giving, just a breath of fresh air type of environment. So,
well, it takes it beyond a religious experience and into a true relational context.
Yes, sir.
And so, it's powerful stuff, man. Hey, thanks for spending time with us today. I've gained a lot from this conversation, and especially guys who are leading in, whether they're leading in business or ministry or whatever, in a smaller setting. I hate to even say the word small because there's such a negative connotation, and I don't even know why. The Bible tells us don't despise small beginnings, but it's not about the size of anything. It's about where has God placed you, and what influence does he want to give you? So if you're in a community of 6,000 like you are, and you have 10% of that community come into your church, you have major influence.
Absolutely.
Just like if someone who has millions of people in their city and they have thousands of people in their church, you probably have more influence than they do in that setting. Yeah. And so it's all, size and numbers and all that's relative to your context. And so what has God called you to do? What pasture has God put you in? And what are you willing to do to change that whole place for the good of the kingdom of God? Kyle Turner, I love what he says, what does he say? Until Jesus, I can't remember what he says, but it's this, until Jesus owns this town or something like that. I don't remember what it is, something of that effect, but it's just, I like that phrase of, we're not stopping until everybody's saved.
Oh yeah.
And awesome. And we know that's unrealistic, but that's how we got to feel.
Yeah.
Man.
We know everybody's got their own choice whether they make it or not. Right. So, Scotty, you haven't said a whole lot in this setting today. So do you want to share something before we shut down?
No, I think I'm all good. I just love Brandon and proud of you, man. You're doing such a great job, special in my heart. My daughter's on his staff, so he's treated her right.
Yeah.
Keep doing that.
Yes, sir.
And so doing great things there.
Yeah.
Been awesome having you, man.
Now, so let's wrap it up by talking about what's most important in life. Golf. Come
on, baby. I am so looking forward to hitting the golf ball with you guys.
Yeah. So he told me this story about you take a golf vacation, and you'll go play 2 or 3 times in a week or whatever, and you'll say to your wife, you know, I'll do this and take the golf vacation. Then when we go on vacation, I can just spend time with the family. And he said, but you always end up going, well, maybe one day. I love to play golf. I'm horrible, but I love to play it. And the reason I love to play it, and I'm being serious now, is the relational context of it. And so I just want to say thanks for being here, and just, you know, relationships are so important. And if I could give any advice to any young leaders coming up, man, find some people you connect with. Absolutely. You don't connect with everybody, and you shouldn't try to. It's a waste of time to I've got to be in connection with everybody. It's a waste of time. Right. Find people, find your tribe. Come on. And build those relationships. Absolutely. And when you do that, and you really have a love for what you do, and you have a love for the place you're doing it, and you have a love for the people you're doing it, that when you face those trials and those circumstances, those situations, it's the relational context that will see you through. And so we're glad to be friends with you, man.
Thank you, guys.
And we're excited for the house church, and I'm believing God's going to take it to whole another levels. And so thanks a lot.
Thank you, Pastor.
Hey, thank you all for joining us today in this podcast. And if you're listening to the podcast, we just want to say we're glad you're part of the network. You know what to do. Subscribe, push likes, share it with everybody. This just helps us to add value to more people and enlarge our audience. And we just want to ask you to do us that favor if you would. And remember, you know, life is messy, so that makes leadership messy sometimes. And we just have to be courageous enough to just keep leading even though it's messy. And so go out today, add value to somebody. You know, I guarantee, it's the only guarantee we make at Gadberry Leadership Coaching is this: if you add value to somebody else, the greater value will be added to you. That's a guarantee. So thanks for being with us today. Join us for the next one, and God bless you so much. Share this with somebody. We love you.